that's this, is that on Pentecost, all that is a part of, all that is critical, all that is crucial to Orthodox theology was made apparent. All knowledge was given. Now, there were times when we misinterpreted that. And when that happened, or when people had their own ideas, like Arius, we had to have an ecumenical council in order to deal with those things. But it's not like Western theology, in which that line, that particular phrase, all truth will be revealed or all truth will be given, is used as a warrant to say, well, things will change as time goes on. And we can find out new things under the theory that the Holy Spirit will reveal to us that there are new things that we should do. And so we have in the West this particular notion that it's all right to change doctrine. It's all right to change belief. It's all right to change the way in which we look at the children of God, at the men and women of God, and of all the men and women on the earth, because of this misinterpretation, if you will, of what is taught to us on Pentecost. You know, Father John Romanides, who was a prominent theologian in the 20th century, who's since passed, but he had a lot of influence even on, my own personal favorite, Metropolitan Artheos of Greece. And he was a great influence on the Metropolitan. And Father John said that on Pentecost, that all of Orthodox theology was revealed. And he said more than that, not only was it revealed, but that theology from an Orthodox point of view is a wheel. If you touch any one point on the wheel, you have touched all of Orthodox belief. And this is really true, because if you think about it, and if you study and if you read, you know that one of the amazing things, that this is what struck me many, many years ago, is that it's a seamless garment. There is no forcing things to make things fit. Everything relates to everything else, and everything is consistent. So we look at the sacraments that we have, and they all have the same goal. They all have the same intent. They all bestow the same blessing, just in different contexts. So that's the second thing about the Holy Spirit descending that we can think about, is that when the Spirit descended, it not only united all of the people, but it gave the apostles all of the knowledge that they needed. And that knowledge was the beginning of the church of the New Testament. So the third thing is this, and that's something I referred to last week, which is that the church is, in fact, the church that has always existed. In the Old Testament, we had great prophets, we had patriarchs, we had very holy people, and we can read about them in the Old Testament. And these are people who had, in fact, gone through the same thing we had, but without having Christ in front of them, in the sense that they were purified, that they were illuminated, and that they became great people in God, great men and women in God. That was the beginning of the church. We could probably talk about Abraham and Isaac and all of those people, and then all through the prophets of the Old Testament. And then we get to the New Testament, and then there's the revelation, the incarnation of Christ, and then the coming of the Holy Spirit. And now the church, in all of its fulfillment, in all of the great ways in which it is made whole, is now here before us. It's not a new one. It's a continuation of the old, but it's a new, more glorious incarnation, if you will, of what had been believed and taught and can be found throughout the Old Testament. So having said that, really, from our point of view, there's really only one question left. And that is this, and this is something that we each need to ask ourselves, that when the Holy Spirit comes, you remember, when you were baptized or chrismated, the Holy Spirit was called upon you and to indwell in you. The Holy Spirit has been put upon each and every one of you, and you all carry it with you. And sometimes we look at our lives and we really don't have much room for the Holy Spirit in it, for one reason or another. And the truth of the matter is that the Holy Spirit, like every other part of the Godhead, Christ himself and God the Father, is not, they are not the kind of God that force people to do anything. They give us all our freedom to do or not do as we want to do. And whether we do that or not, whether it's inconsistent with what we are taught with the indwelling of the Holy Spirit, or whether it's consistent with it, depends an awful lot on us. So that if we allow ourselves to be distracted, if we allow ourselves to be more concerned with one thing or another, if we allow ourselves to be beset by anxiety and fear and worry, if we allow ourselves to be beset by the things of the world, if we allow ourselves to lose that kind of focus, the Holy Spirit is like, well, okay, whatever. And we can lose that indwelling. That's not to say we lose it altogether. But it's something that we consciously have to know is there, and we consciously have to want, and we consciously have to pursue. Well, in a lot of ways that's different from what the world tells you. It's different from certainly what Western theology says and what even some Orthodox theologians say. But the truth of the matter is that from that moment when you were baptized and christened and the Holy Spirit comes upon you, remember back to whenever that was. And ask yourself, is it clear that the Spirit is in my life? He's there. He's waiting. He's ready to be in your life. That's not to say that we're all going to be like the apostles and then I'm going to start speaking in, a half dozen tongues at the same time. I can barely speak in English today. But it does say to us that that knowledge, that indwelling that came to the apostles on the day of Pentecost is the same indwelling that is made available to us. But we have to want it. Now the apostles did want it, and they had a lot of reasons to want it. I mean, that's an advantage, right? They'd not only seen the crucifixion and the death, but then they'd seen the risen Christ, which is a great, great motivator. But they also, we have the same advantages. We come to church, we partake of the Eucharist, we have available all of the sacraments to us, but too often we don't pay attention. It's up to us. We have to take that first step. That's not to say that we can save ourselves. We can't. But we have to take that first step. We have to indicate a willingness. We have to be like the prodigal son laying in the pig pen. He's going, I don't really like it here. I want to go home again. We have to make that determination and that decision. So on the day of Pentecost, when we remember today what happened when the Holy Spirit came upon the apostles and the Theotokos who was there, and they're in that upper room and they start preaching and people are going, those guys are drunk, they're just drunk. And they were kinda, in a good sense, because it had overcome them. It had overshadowed them. So when we think about the Holy Spirit in our own lives, we're not thinking about doing something that draws attention to ourselves, like oftentimes happens with people who speak in tongues, do that kind of thing. It is, or like Benny Hinn, where you go and people fall over or something like that. So it's not a showy thing. It's not the kind of thing that will draw attention to us, but it's the kind of thing that will transform us if we will let that happen. In the name of the